everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of season 2 of the Quick Cast. My name is Becca, and I'm going to be your host today. We are going to cover Achiever, which is one of the themes from the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And if you're not familiar with that particular success metric, please do check out the link in the show notes. It'll tell you a little bit more about that. But our purpose in talking about these themes of strengths is for us to talk more in depth about how they work for writers. That's really what our show is about. There's a lot of strength stuff out there, but we want to focus on how to be a better, faster writer, not just faster, not just better, but better hyphen faster, which is an exponential capacity for growth and development in your areas of highest success capacity. And so we have a theme called Achiever in the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And today we're going to talk with two of our certified coaches, Becca and Terry, about what Achiever looks like. And if you haven't taken the test before, we always encourage you to take the test before you watch the show, because it's important to be able to take the test without any bias. And so, or with as little bias as is humanly possible, of course, right? So if you haven't done that, we hope that you'll go do that. And if you have Achiever, we hope you enjoy talking with Terry and Becca about what your strength looks like. So take it away, Terry and Becca.
Achievers love to get things done. They love to be busy. They love to be productive. For achievers, it's all about go, go, and then go. Often fans of lists. I always, whenever I see Achiever, I always ask, so do you love lists? And many do, although some do not, but that doesn't matter. They still get stuff done. And I'm not an achiever. And so it's very interesting to watch them go. My daughter's a high achiever. Friends of mine are achievers, and it's so cool because you get energy from being active and busy. And the more you're active, the busier you are, the happier you are, which is really, really interesting. I coached an achiever today whose list used to be large and now is less. And they were depressed. It was a depressing thing for them. They felt like they weren't as useful. They felt like their days weren't as full of stuff. And it was fun because we fixed that really easy. I asked them if they did, what didn't they put on their list? And they didn't put a lot of stuff on their list. And so I invited them to put things like take the dog out, go for a walk, do the dishes, even little mundane things. And they seem to just brighten up and sit up straighter just at that itself. It really is powerful, the list for an achievers that like the list. We talked, it's coming up lately about people feeling guilty for still being active and still doing things in times where others aren't. Is it calm? Do achievers would suffer possibly from this all the time? Am I right? They would this would be something that they might always be prone to.
Yeah. I mean, achievers find solace in work, like really.
Right.
So like it's really hard to explain to people. I have an achiever arranger pair that are in the bottom of my dominant sphere. And they come up a lot when there's stress. Because for me, when I get stressed out, what I'd rather do is like make a new class, write a new book, like try and focus on something that I can control, that I can work at hard, that will make me feel like everything's going to be okay, right? Like I get a lot of solace from working. And of course, what always comes up are things like, well, when we're on vacation, like I always take work with me on vacation. Not because I don't want to spend time with my people, but because it makes me feel good to work a little bit every day. And I like that feeling. And I think that when people are in stress mode, or the quarantine is difficult for them, or they're going through a difficult time, like sometimes pulling out the laptop and getting lost in the work can be the absolute best thing for you. And you shouldn't feel guilty about it at all. Typically where we see achievers struggling for writers has more to do with their relationships with other people than it does with their work, because they're so hard. They're such hard workers that they're not typically struggling to get work done. But where they do struggle is outside of relationships, is often in their own expectations. right? Like if you do a release and it doesn't go the way that you thought it should, and you take a lot of responsibility on yourself for that release because you feel like you should have been able to work harder and get that release to produce. Well, the sucky thing about this industry is that your hard work doesn't always mean that you're going to get rewarded with sales.
That's a tough one for
It's
achievers. That's a tough
really
one.
hard for achievers to internalize that. And sometimes, in fact, people who don't work hard make a lot of money, and they do it because they game the system, or because they have a fluke, really great release, or because they're just immensely talented, right? So it's totally possible for people without achiever anywhere in their top 20 to be extremely successful and to kind of not work very hard. And it really can frustrate the achievers to compare themselves to that person, because then it feels like, well, but I did all of this hard work and now I'm not being rewarded for it. And what is that? Like, they're not used to that feeling.
Is that a
They're
common
always used to being rewarded for their hard work.
is that a common trait that achievers compare, that achievers look for ways to improve and get better and they compare themselves against other people, or not always?
Not usually. They do if they feel like they're missing something. Like often the achiever learner, if they feel like this person is super successful, how are they doing it? They
Right.
might go looking for their success patterns, but they're generally speaking not uber competitive with other people. They're
Right. It's
more
themselves.
self.
And they're
Today, we have three amazing achiever authors with us in the QuickCast Strength for Writers talk show segment. And I have a quick little mini announcement about the way that the visuals happened. Because we had to record on Zoom today, we couldn't use the typical platform that we use. There are actually four of us on this call, even though only three of our faces are going to show up, but we had to turn off Maya's camera. And I did not realize that Zoom would do this, but Zoom actually completely took her out of the visual. So typically you would be able to see her face, but this time you can't, but you can hear her voice. So when the three of us are all looking into the camera, we are actually looking at Maya talking, but she won't show up. That'll look like there's only three, but there are four. So I'm just going to introduce really quickly the writers who are going to join us. We have Maya Hughes, who is a new adult and contemporary romance author, and whose books are just amazing, and she sells incredibly well, and I'm so excited to have her here. We also have, if you are familiar at all with historical romance, you likely already know who Jess Michaels is, 10-time USA Today bestseller. She writes historical romance, and she is a #1 achiever. Maya's #2 achiever. And then we have one of my favorite authors who I did not know was a #1 achiever also until she came into the strengths program at the Better Faster Academy. And it's Yasmine Galenorn, who you likely know her name. She is a multi New York Times, USA Today, Wall Street Journal bestseller. She's written some of the most famous urban fantasy and paranormal romance that is out there. I've been reading her for forever, and she's a phenomenal writer, and she's a #1 achiever. And so we're really excited to have all three of these writers here with us today, and we're going to talk about what it looks like to be a writer who has high achiever. And then Becca's going to land the plane a little bit at the end. And so I hope you enjoy the Strengths for Writers talk show with four people. I promise there's four.
Yeah.
So for achievers, resting too much stresses them out. And so the whole idea, and I know you'd see Maya like nodding, right?
Yes.
If you could,
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
the what am I doing? Like, why am I just sitting here? And so the most common conversation that we start to have with achievers and non-achievers is we have to let everybody be who they are. Like if you are with or around someone who's very stressed by rest, don't make them rest, let them work. They'll be, they'll be fine. So, and let's start with Jess. If you were to try to explain achiever in a sentence or two based on your experience, what would you say?
I mean, I notice achiever mostly in my work because it's all the goal setting, right? So like every single day I have the 20 things that need to get done on my list, and they're getting crossed off as I do them because then I feel better about my life. And it's just working constantly toward that. And that is, I think, how it manifests for the most part for me, is that just constant churn of what do I need to get done? And then if I don't meet it, then I'm not very good at giving myself grace for not meeting it. There's not a lot of space for that, which I'm trying to work on getting better at, because there's such a balance between I need to work to be healthy because it is my mental health I have to work, and I'm going to burn out because I don't know any speed except for foot to the floor. And I think that's really what it is. I know no speed except for foot to the floor. There's no second gear or third gear. There's fifth gear. That's it. And so that's really what achiever looks like for me, is just the constant push. And like, I think what you just said is really true. I mean, people say, oh, you work too hard, you're doing too much, you need to take a break. And all of that just increases my stress exponentially when I take a break. In fact, when all this sort of happened with the Corona thing, I was actually on a gap between one book and another. And I started the book earlier because I thought, I know the way my brain works, and I know that if I'm working, I'm going to feel a lot more mentally healthy. So it's understanding that this is how my brain works, and when I remind myself of that, then I'm a lot happier person.
Yeah. Maya, what about you? How does how would you explain achiever to somebody?
For me, it's very much about the more I do, the more I can do. So it just like, it pushes me like when I get my words done before, 8 a.m. And then it's just like, it opens the day up, and it just makes it so that I can do 15 or 19 of the 20 things that are on my list. Like, I just feel like, okay, I can keep going. I can keep going. I can keep going. Like, yes. And I've moved another one off and another one and another one. And it just keeps building where I get more energy as I check more things off my list. Whereas if I don't get my words, or I'm not able to focus and get things done, it just drags me down, and it really is hard to sort of get back. And I sort of have to start with smaller baby steps to get me back to where I need to be. But yeah, that when I fit, like my husband can tell immediately. He's like, you got your words in this morning, didn't you? And I'm like, yes, because I want to do all the things. I can do everything. And so that's sort of how it is for me.
For me, it's almost, my competition plays into my achiever.
Yeah.
It's like I compete with myself to see how much I can get done.
Yeah.
And the more I get done, the better I feel about myself. And it's sometimes like Jess, I will have either I'm totally on or I'm totally off. It's like if I'm off, I'm goofing around, I'm watching Netflix, I don't want to do anything. But when I'm on, I'm on. And that's most of the time. And I do not do vacations well. I can manage a couple days of just goofing around, but I don't do downtime very well. I get stressed. I actually get unpleasant to be around after a few days. My mood goes south, and I feel worried. It's like it'll bring up worry that, oh my God, I'm not doing something. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'll get anxiety. I get anxiety attacks if I am down too long.
Well, Jess and Maya, do you guys, how do you vacation?
I think my vacation probably looks like other people's like worst nightmare. Like, I am not a sit by the pool kind of person, like at all. Like, I can sit there for like 15 minutes as we're getting like ready for the day. But I'm like, okay, we're doing like aerial silks, and then we're doing a cooking class, and then we're doing a wine tasting, and then we're doing a bike tour, and then we're doing a this, and then we're doing like, I mean, I can't like, I just like sitting in like a cabin in the woods or just like sitting on the beach is just like my worst nightmare, because my brain is always going. If I'm not being occupied with something else, I can't relax. Like, I relax by doing things because my brain can like focus on the task at hand and isn't just like spinning into this crazy like, and then I need to do this, and then I can go here and do that. Like, it just, that's a way for me to focus and like relax and calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I mean, we tend to do vacation. I'm very lucky. My husband also has a fairly high achiever, so he gets it. And I think over the years, he's figured out that if he's planning something, if he's the one planning it, he needs to make sure he plans it so that I'm doing stuff, because I can't do more than, like, there's something wrong with me if I want to lay by the beach, like I'm sick or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, like I'm physically ill. So, you know, like our vacations have been, like we did hiking the Hebrides in Scotland a couple years ago. And so we were constantly
Nice.
moving, we were constantly being exposed to history, and we had an archaeologist that was with us. And so he was doing like talks, and that was perfect because we never stopped. And in fact, there was at some point at dinner, someone that was on the tour with us was like, oh, you know, I wonder when we're going to get some downtime. And I was like, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
I don't want that. This is a good vacation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that I have learned, and now I understand why, because I understand now the achiever thing, why I need to do stuff on vacation. And
Yeah.
so we just don't do very many beach, you know, lay on the beach vacations. Like I need to do stuff.
Yeah.
I like doing day trips now and then. You know, take a day trip to the woods,
Yeah.
take a day trip to the beach, but I don't like doing more than a day trip.
Yeah.
It's just too much time without being proactive, being productive. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I need to feel productive.
Yeah. I mean, I find achievers in my dominant, right? And so I find that I will take work with me on vacation, and when everybody else is in their downtime and they're laying around and whatever, I will pull work out and start working. And I used to feel so guilty about it because I felt like it meant that I couldn't relax or, you know, whatever. But then I took a vacation once where my best friend made me not work. Like I was not allowed to work. And I was so stressed out when I was done with that vacation. It was like, she basically said, like, we're never doing that again. Like, you can work all you want when you're on vacation because I just can't let the time pass without getting done what needs to get done. But I don't find that I need, when I'm relaxing, I don't need to work as much as I work when I'm working, right? It's like, no, I just need to get these things done and then we can go do stuff. I want to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
But it stresses me out when things are there to be done and not getting done. So I feel like that's a good indicator for a lot of achievers, is the difference between when are you feeling stress and when are you not feeling stress. And people who don't have achiever will say things like, well, don't put things on your to-do list or just plan on not working. And I'm like, that's not the point. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not the point.
It does feel like there's a lot of judgment against the achiever thing that,
Yes.
you know, I mean, if I say I can write a book in 6 weeks, people, and then I explain how I can do that, you know, or 5 weeks or 4 weeks to be fair. So I write about 75. So
75, yeah.
yeah. And I figured out the level of how much I can write where I don't burn myself out, but I'm not
Yep.
feeling like I want to strangle everyone in my life because I'm not doing enough. And
Yep.
so people say, oh, I want to know how you do that. And so then I explain it, you know, which is what we were talking about before we kind of started recording. And the reaction is both, I don't want to do that, which I know you don't want to do that because your brain isn't hardwired that way. So it's okay that you want to do that. But then also there's kind of this backhanded, like, well, you know, I guess you can churn them out. Like I don't care. And it's like, but no, this is just how my brain actually works. Like
I get that too. I get that a lot.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because it's like, you don't get it. Like if I sit down on the back end of a book, I can write 60 pages in a day. Yeah. Because I'm on the slide, and that's how my experience works for me. And you know, I mean,
and 60 pages I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Like,
yes. Yeah. That I, when I come out at the end of the day, I'm like, that was good work. I'm really proud of that. And so, I mean, I do feel as an achiever, especially in writing where it is very input, you know, and in historical romance, especially, people want to research and they want to know and they want to discover. And that's great because I actually have a fairly high input, but my input works alongside my achiever in that I only want to know exactly the information I need to know to get through what I need to know it for. I don't want to know anything else. I don't want to know all the details, not because I don't care about historical accuracy, because I care about producing a book. So it's just that mindset doesn't gel with a lot of other people. And so it ends up being kind of frustrating talking about writing, which is why I was like, oh my God, I'm writing this down. Here's some achievers. Yay. Because you would get
Yeah.
it, you know, if we had this conversation. And it's very difficult to find people that get, especially that super high achiever mentality.
Like achievers, that strength that is self-competitive. And we talk a lot with achiever about wanting to level up every time. Like you want the next book to be better than the last book. And every time you hit like an income level, you want to hit the next income level. And we talk a lot about things like resetting the bar, right? And or I think what the metaphor that gets used a lot in a negative way is that you reset the goalposts every time. Right. But to me, that's actually a generative action because, and Maya and I had a really interesting conversation once about the way futuristic plays into that too, where like when you set a goal, you get excited about the goal being accomplished when you set it, and and you feel that elation, and that makes your achiever want to kick in and sort of work on. Maya, do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was just like there was a goal sort of that I had in my mind, and it's like a big goal, and you know, and I almost like started tearing up that I like because I could sort of feel myself like that is how it's going to feel when I achieve it, and that is what it's going to be like for me. And then I was sort of thinking in my mind like, okay, well maybe that's why when I reach those goals, I don't like sit there and revel in it and like go buy a glass of like, you know, a bottle of champagne and like do all these things because I've already celebrated. Like I've already felt those feelings and I've already enjoyed it. So to other people, it might seem like I've blown past it. But for me, I'm like, no, I already celebrated it because I knew I was going to get here. So I'm just, you know, I'm on to the next thing kind of. So.
Yeah, because as soon as you cross that line to the next level, the achiever is immediately setting its sights on the next thing. And so the upside of that, I think, is that there's very little downtime of like not accomplishing things or not moving forward because you do set that, and it can cause some friction with people who don't understand it. But it's partly because for somebody who's not wired this way, they need that break. They need the rest, the breather. They need the excitement, the champagne, right? Go out to dinner, etc. But for achievers, what excites them then is the next level that they could get to. And who said you have to celebrate in the moment? Why has that become the expectation? If literally every achiever resets the goalpost every single time they cross the line, why can we not just assimilate as a culture that it's okay for people to be like that? Like
That would be nice.
yeah, it would make all the achievers feel a lot better about life.
Yeah, I mean, I feel uncomfortable if I don't have a goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so when I accomplish one, I've already set the next one in my mind before I finish the last one.
Yep.
You know, it's like, okay,
Yep.
I know I'm going to do this. What do I want to do next?
Yep.
And I enjoy what I'm doing as I'm doing it.
Yep.
You know, it's
Yep.
like I enjoy achieving that goal while I'm achieving it,
Yep.
not just after it's done.
Yeah.
When it's
What
so
I've tried
important.
to do.
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead, Maya.
I was going to say what I've tried to also do is look back at the goals that I've set for myself because I don't feel like I necessarily do that as much. And so I will go back and look at those old goals and go, wow, like I like I blew straight past that. Like that was something that was a stretch goal for me. And I've already done like, you know, so I do think that I've tried to consciously go back and look through my journals and all my plans and all my spreadsheets and all of these things that I've put together when I'm planning for things in the future and actually look at them and go, okay, wow, I did do that, you know, because I think, you know, it's about that. Okay, like, look what I did accomplish. So I've tried to do that more, just because it's something I don't want it to necessarily get lost in the race that I enjoy and I like doing it, but I still just I think sometimes I feel like for me personally, I don't take those even moments when I do achieve them to like at least look back and go, oh, okay, yeah, wow.
When it may not be the purpose of doing that may not be in the moment that you achieve it, right? It might be like, I think every once in a while when an achiever will get frustrated, it'll be important to stop and look back, right? And say, oh, look at all the things that you've done. And then the achiever gets that jolt of excitement again from it. But the jolt of excitement they get from having crossed the finish line is to look at the next finish line, not to look back at the one they just crossed, because that doesn't feel, and I think Yasmine said it right. It's you feel something is absent. So if you cross the line and you don't have the next thing to look at, it feels wrong. And so that's a really good example of, if you look around a room of achievers and everybody's like, oh, yep, me too, I do that too, then you know, okay, there's nothing wrong with that behavior. Then it's like, this is a generative behavior for achievers, and it's part of what makes you move forward. So we talk a lot with achievers about then what the downside of that is, which is that you're sort of never truly satisfied in the moment with what has happened or what you are currently accomplishing. And let's start with Yasmine, and we'll work around. But how have you coped with that in the past, or how do you intend to cope with it maybe as you move forward?
I just keep trying to remind myself that I always feel like that. And it's just part of my makeup. It's like you're always going to have this part of yourself feeling this way. Just don't dwell on it. Don't worry about it. Just accept it as, I wouldn't call it a flaw per se, but as um, just a blip. It's a glitch in my
Normal.
makeup. And I focus more on the opposite side. It's like, okay, yeah, I am not happy where I'm at, but I have gotten this far. I will get further. Just keep working. And I put my focus into the work, is what I
Yeah.
do, because I love the process. I don't just love the results. I absolutely love the process, and that
Ooh, that's a
helps me
good
cope with it.
distinction. That's a really good distinction, because the work is fun,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've never wanted to do anything else. I wanted to do this since I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
And I knew that the entire way along, because I spent 20 years in trad. And I started back when we used manual typewriters.
Right. Yeah.
So I always knew that there was going to be lag times.
Yeah.
And I just kept working. I just kept at it. And it was like, okay, I failed on this one, or, I got a rejection on that. That's fine. That's just a proof that I'm working towards my
You're
goal,
working.
and I would just keep working.
Yeah. Jess, what about you?
I think I sort of have a twofold answer. And so the way that I deal with it is that I have taken control of all the elements of it that I can take control of. I mean, there's obviously, it's publishing, so there's a lot of things you can't control. But going fully indie really helped my achiever, because now I'm the one I'm not waiting for somebody else to screw up. If I screw up, I can fix it. If I want to do things a certain way, I can do it that way. And so taking those things out of the hands of someone else, and then taking on all that responsibility onto my shoulders, onto our shoulders, as a publisher, has really helped me, because I'm no longer, my achiever isn't fed by somebody else's decision-making process.
Right.
And so it's not that I don't get frustrated, but I get frustrated by very different things. And I think what Yasmine said really resonates with me, because writing is the most safe space that I have in my life. It is the place that I go when the worst things are happening to me personally, when the worst things are happening in the world, is the place that I go, and writing is the saving grace of my life. Like I can't imagine, I mean, what I said earlier, the world falls apart around you, and my first response is I need to go write, because at least in that world, I can control how things come out in the end. I can punish bad people. I can reward good people. I can make the bad things go away. I can give a happily ever after, because I write romance. So I think it's a combination of those two things, is taking control of what I can control, and then remembering, like you said, that it isn't just the achieving. I mean, it's great. It's fun to achieve. It's fun to meet a goal. It's fun to hit a list. It's fun to have a book come out. It's fun to see something that you've worked on come to fruition when you've put so much time and energy into it. But
Yeah.
if all of that goes away, I would still write. You know, we always joke in our house, well, what would you do if you won the lottery, if you won $500 million? I would still write. I could not write. Maybe I would be less, although it's me, I would be still driven too.
You still would be
I'm
an
a number one
achiever.
achiever. I would still be an achiever. But
Yeah.
the way that I was driven, I think, would change maybe. But the background of why I'm so driven would change. But I think that the writing and the being driven wouldn't change at all.
Maya, what about you? How do you handle never feeling completely satisfied with anything, like the work, right?
I mean, I feel like I'm pretty okay. I feel like I'm okay with that level of little bit of dissatisfaction that's always there. Like I've come to terms with it, you know, I'm talking a lot with you, Becca. Like,
Yeah.
I think my record is probably like 4 hours of being like, wow, I accomplished this goal, you know, like I feel like, and then I was like, okay, what's the next one? Like, it was a goal that I mean, it was even past a goal that I had set. And I was like, okay, I have to take a step back and go, wow, you did this. You did even better than you thought. Like, okay, great. So I think, yeah, at this point, it's just, for me, I think that one of the hardest things with Achiever is that I don't want to stop. Like, I have 3 kids, I have a husband, like I work full time. My time is very precious. And I mean, it is hard for me to shut down the computer. Like I could go until midnight. I could go until 2 a.m. I could keep going because there are things that I want to do and there's stuff that I need to, but it's like, okay, I should probably go to sleep. I should probably, you know, like when we do have dinner, I feel like a lot of the things it's like, oh, let me just, you know, do one more post or reply to one more comment or set up one more thing. And it's, so I've been trying to work on like disconnecting and putting my phone down, which I am not been very good at, but I think that's one of the hardest things is just giving myself that separation because I do enjoy this so much. I love the writing part. I love the marketing part. I love the advertising stuff. I love all of that stuff. So it's really hard to step away from it when I enjoy it so much.
One of the things we discussed when we were all just sort of talking together after the interview was over was the fact that it's sometimes hard to be a high achiever writer. Yes, you definitely are successful, generally speaking. You're very driven. You like to get a lot of work done, but there's a lot of difficulty also that comes with that. Feeling misunderstood by people, feeling like there is some kind of microscope that you have to live under because everybody's so interested in how you can get so much done. And then also there's the either professional or personal jealousy of your people who are close to you or of other writers or of people in any other industry or anything like that. And likely most achievers have grown up with some level of that as well. So it's not as easy as it may seem. We talked about this particularly because I happened to mention that one of the most common strengths people say that they would like to have is high achiever. And of course, all the higher achiever writers were like, no, you don't want this. Like, this is not an easy strength to have, which I think a lot of us feel about our personal strengths, but also that it isn't just easy. Like having a strength that is this driven, that's this obsessed with, you know, leveling up every time. It's not just an easy thing to have. And there's a lot of dissatisfaction that comes with being a high achiever. And so just knowing that once you have a name for that and you can put words to it and feel like there's nothing wrong with it, and then meet other people also who have that, it can be really, really nice to have that feeling. And so this is just another reminder, if you've never taken the test before, there is a place on the Gallup website, gallup.com, where you can take the test. We also sell discounted codes through our betterfasteracademy.com site. If you contact us at assistant@betterfasteracademy.com, we can help you with that. But additionally, we just want to get this information out there because we have found the strengths rubric for success to be so helpful. As always, I like to remind everybody that we do have coaching through the Patreon. We also have 2 coaches, Terry and Susan, who are currently open for coaching. If you are seeing this for the first time and you're wondering, how do I figure out more about my strengths? You can come to our Strengths for Writers coaching cohort which you can learn about on our website, or you can also just contact us and see if one of our coaches has some free time and can sit down with you. And please do reach out and get coached if this is something that you have never experienced before. So many people have said to me at one time or another, oh, we did strengths in my company, or we did strengths at my nonprofit or my church or my school, but they didn't get coached. They didn't sit down with an expert and walk through the process of understanding what it means that you have these things. And that particular part of the learning process is so important, especially if you do want to get to that better, hyphen, faster place where you're not just taking anybody's advice. You're not just listening to somebody talk about productivity or whatever. You're actually getting individualized attention and customized advice that's meant just for you. And that's what we do. That's what coaches do. That's what we're here for. And so please do contact us if that interests you. And I know, if you know me at all, you know that I hate selling, but I get to the point where I feel like people are not aware that we do these things. So we always just want to let you know. We have coaching available through the Patreon that you can do in groups. We have coaching that's individual through the Patreon and through our email address. We also have our cohorts of coaching, the Strengths for Writers cohorts, where you get coached by 2 different coaches. And then our goal is to help you know your strengths better and to get better faster. And so we hope that that will happen for some of you. I just think that it's so important right now to be doing everything we can do to stay resilient and to stay on top of our development. And so we hope that we can be a part of that. And if you're not in that place right now, that's okay. We are going to have plenty of opportunities to get more information on this podcast. We will be back next week with more of our Writer's Block series. And I hope in the meantime that you will learn a lot, that you will do well and do good work. And we will see you next week on the Quick Cast. Bye.